Elden Ring ruined gaming for me. And even though I smashed 2 controllers while playing the game, every other game I play now simply sucks. See, there was a time when I was a happy gamer. A time when I could look at a map with hundreds of icons and dive in to complete them all. It was the gaming equivalent of eating unseasoned boiled chicken every day for years and thinking that this is the best food ever. And then I played Elden Ring. It didn't just challenge me. It didn't just open my eyes. It took my simple love for video games, dragged it into the back alley and beat it to death with a large club. And now it looks like I can't even play a normal video game anymore. For real, I recently tried to play Assassin's Creed Shadows. After 4 hours, I caught myself staring at the screen with dead eyes and I just turned it off. Now, let me explain how this happened, because if you had asked me like 5 years ago, I would have told you I hate Souls games. In fact, the first time I played a Souls game, I didn't even make it past the 3rd boss. Now, before you go and judge me, I'm not a born Souls player. I don't have some hidden skills like godlike reflexes, the ability to recognize patterns in attacks right away, or the endurance to die to a boss 200 times before quitting. In fact, most of my gaming career, I actively avoid these games. And to understand that, let's rewind a bit. The year is 2015. At that time, I was listening to a lot of Lovecraft's audiobooks, and I really liked the style. About the same time, Bloodborne released, and the internet was screaming. Every review, every YouTuber, every forum post was saying the same thing. This is a masterpiece. This is the game of the year, and if you don't play this, you are the real gamer. So, I've watched the trailer. I saw the gothic architecture, the trench coats, the transforming saw cleavers, and I was hooked. I looked at the reviews, and sure, people mentioned it was hard, but I brushed it off. I mean, come on, how hard could it be? I mean, just a year earlier, I had beaten Wolfenstein on the hardest difficulty setting. So, cocky as I was, I thought the other players were just bad and had a skill issue. And oh boy, I was so wrong. So I bought the game, I installed it, I created a character that looked somewhat human, which is like a massive achievement in a From Software game, and I started playing it. The first few hours were extremely confusing. See, as I mentioned in the intro, I was a normal gamer. I played the standard games and enjoyed them. I played Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, Revelations, and the 3rd part to like 100%, which in retrospective seems like a huge waste of time, but we are going to talk about that in just a second. But long story short, I was used to having a minimap, quest markers, and overall, like clear objectives. However, when I first started playing Bloodborne, I was completely lost. The game doesn't give you a map, it doesn't tell you where to go, and the story isn't spoon-fed to you. So when I started playing the game, I died a lot. Like, really a lot. And at that time, I didn't know it, but From Software likes to basically put an unbeatable boss in front of you where they want you to die. Now, I spent about like 2 hours trying to finally get by the villagers around the fire in central Yarmum. But I pushed through the problem by simply panic rolling at luck. And then I met the Cleric Beast, which killed me over and over and over again. I don't know how many attempts it took me, but at the end, I managed to beat it, somehow. Now, fast forward another 15 hours and countless deaths, I managed to make it past Father Gascoigne. And in all honesty, I was completely confused. And even more importantly, I was pissed. The only reason I didn't stop playing it was because I just spent $50 on the game. Now, keep in mind that at that point I still had no clue about anything in the stories, the characters, and if I was doing anything right. Because, well, there were no quest markers, no minimap, and so on. As you can probably tell, at that point, I didn't really like the way of playing a video game like this. Now, funnily enough, the zero hand-holding and letting the player find everything out themselves is what today I enjoy most about From Software games, especially Elden Ring. Anyway, I then walked into a church in Old Yarnum and met the blood-starved beast. Now, for those of you who didn't play the game, let me explain. Imagine a skinless greyhound that has been doing meth for the past 3 days and looks like it comes straight out of Stranger Things. It screams like a fax machine being thrown into a wood chipper. It moves faster than you can react, and just for fun, it poisons you if you stand in the same zip code as this thing. Imagine, at that moment, I was just getting a little bit of confidence in my ability to play the game. So I walked in, and 10 seconds later, I died. Attempt 2? I made it about 30 seconds, but just because I wasn't even trying to attack it and just ran away. On attempt 3, I ran out of antidotes and heal potions, so I died through the poison. So I found for potions and searched for antidotes so I could do a few more attempts. After about 20 attempts, I was no longer having fun. I was swearing and screaming at my TV. For me, this wasn't the fun challenge everyone talked about. It felt like straight up bullying. It felt like I was trying to solve a math exam while someone constantly slapped me in the face with a wet towel. So I did what every good gamer would do. I started coping. I convinced myself that the problem wasn't me. It was the game. It was bad design. So I did the only logical thing. I rage quit. But I didn't just turn the console off. I uninstalled the game, I took the disc out, put it in the case, and shoved it to the very back of my shelf. I told myself I was never playing a Souls-like ever again. I was done with getting good, and I wanted to go back to a world where I was the hero. I wanted a world where if I got stuck, a giant floating arrow would appear on the screen and say, "Go here, stupid." So right after putting Bloodborne down, I have to admit, I was somehow broken. I didn't want environmental storytelling where I have to read the item description of like a dirty pair of pants to understand what's going on. I wanted safety, comfort, and a game where I can control the difficulty through a slider. Now around that time, the industry was going through a bit of something you would call a transformation. See, around 2017, 18 and the following years, something shifted. The industry realized that writing good stories and designing unique maps was hard work and expensive. So they collectively decided to say screw it and make everything a checklist and a collective fun. This was the era that I like to call the ubification. Or at least that's what I read on the subreddit, and I thought it was quite fitting. It felt that from that point on, every game needed to be an RPG. Every game needed to be a skill tree. Every game needed a crafting system where you have to skin 5 badgers to make a wallet. And I thought I was the perfect customer. And again, I was pretty wrong. I went back to the game franchise that I loved, Assassin's Creed. I still remember how I bought the double disc edition of Origins and Odyssey. Since the whole Greek mythology thing seemed more interesting to me, I started with Odyssey. And immediately, something felt very wrong. We went from Ezio, who is one of the gaming's greatest characters of all time, to whatever those two folks in Odyssey were. I mean, the protagonist wasn't the hero. He was basically a frat boy with bad jokes on a gap year in Greece. I lost count on how many times I heard that guy screaming, "Hey, Malaka!" And, to my shame, I played it anyway. I sat through the entire gameplay loop of cleaning a bandit camp, climbing up the highest tower, and synchronizing the whole thing. And while I did that, it didn't feel quite as fulfilling as in the old days. So, when Assassin's Creed Valhalla released, I was hyped once again, only to be let down once more. I mean, just look at the map. It looks like someone sneezed icons all over the screen. And because I didn't think through it, I blamed myself. I remember climbing the 20th tower and sitting there with the controller in my hand, thinking to myself, is this it? Am I getting too old for video games? At this point, I really thought that my passion, which I enjoyed over 20 years at that point for gaming, was dying. I thought maybe I should take up a new adult hobby, like gardening or woodworking. So I put the controller down for quite a long time. I barely played anything, and even if I picked up a game, I couldn't motivate myself to sit through the entire game. I drifted away from it, convinced that I was the problem. Over the next years, I watched the gaming industry from the sidelines. And I probably don't have to go into detail because you might have experienced it yourself, but games turned from creative work into a corporate cookie-cutter template. I mean, I could go into ChatGPT right now and have it create the next Assassin's Creed. And the sad thing is that Ubisoft would probably create it. It wasn't until years later that something actually managed to catch my attention. And that something was Elden Ring. Now, when the first trailer dropped, I liked the style. It looked high fantasy, it looked epic. But I hesitated massively. See, nowadays, every time I look at the pre-order button of a game, I get Vietnam-like flashbacks to a mix of the blood-starved beast from Bloodborne, the collectibles from Assassin's Creed, and the half-assed launch of Fallout 76. But what I remember the most is the $50 I lit on fire back in 2015 with Bloodborne. And this time, they were asking for $60. And that seemed like a significant investment for a game where I didn't know if I might see the "you died" screen more times than actually playing the game. So I waited. I sat back and watched the hype train leave the station without me. And good lord, it was a big hype train. YouTubers were playing the game left and right. My timeline was flooded with clips of people getting stepped on by giants, people getting grabbed by hands with 20 fingers, and people fighting a woman that broke the internet for being the hardest boss ever created. It felt like the entire world was playing the game. And the weirdest part? The marketing wasn't normal. See, Ubisoft usually spends millions of dollars on CGI trailers with imagined dragons playing in the background. But From Software, on the other hand, they just released the game. They didn't beg you to buy it, they just put it on the table and said, good luck. Now, I'm not sure if FromSoft was confident that this game would be such a monumental success, because up until this point, the entire Souls genre has rather been niche, or at least I thought. But this time, they really managed to hit the mainstream. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But when the game released in February 2022, the reviews were perfect. The players were happy. And most importantly, it wasn't a buggy mess, which is something remarkable these days. And yet, here I was waiting. I held out all the way until November. 9 months of watching all kinds of clips. 9 months of watching from the sidelines until I finally gave in. I bought the game, I booted it up, created a character who once again looked like Nicolas Cage, and started playing the game. This time, I decided to give the game an honest try. I was prepared to suck, to not find anything, and most importantly, I was prepared to die. A lot. Now, after I made it through the first final boss that is supposed to kill you, I got thrown into a limb grave. And by making it through the first boss, I mean I got killed in seconds. Now, after watching countless of videos, I knew that the map was gigantic. And I knew that there were countless things to do. So I hoped for a bit more hand-holding in this game. However, there was none of that. The only hand-holding you got in the beginning was a guy leaned against the rock calling you the Tarnished. And a bit to the right, there was a guy on a golden horse who immediately beat me to death with his halberd. Which later on, I skipped. I fought my way up the path and I felt okay. At least the combat was clicking a bit. So I thought this time I might be able to make a bit of progress in the game. And then I walked into the boss room of Margit. Now, Margit is a so-called filter boss. And just like the name says, he is designed to filter people like me. Why do they do this? I have no clue. Maybe I'm not smart enough, but from my perspective, doesn't that make most people just quit the game? Anyway, I started fighting Margit. He holds his stick up in the air for 3 business days, waits for you to panic roll, and then smacks you over and over again. I lost count on how many times I died to him. And at first, I once more thought, fuck, this is Bloodborne all over again. But then, something weird happened. I opened the map and realized I don't have to be here. There was a whole area to the south, a forest to the east, and so much more to explore. I don't have to fight Margit just yet. I could just leave and come back later. And this is exactly what I did. I turned around, got on my horse, and rode in the exact opposite direction. And that's when it clicked. The game doesn't make you follow a checklist. I wasn't clearing icons and going somewhere because the game told me to do so. I was exploring because I was terrified of the boss and I needed to find a weapon that wasn't a rusty spoon. So I went south, I killed a caravan of giants, got killed by a slave miner that turned into a deer, and found a chest that teleported me into a hell dimension filled with crystal miners. For the first time in the years, I wasn't just playing a game. I was on a real adventure. I spent hours just running around, leveling up, finding cool gear, and by the time I remembered I should go back to Margit, the game changed something in me. See, my definition of open world fundamentally changed. Usually open world means that you can explore the map as much as the game allows you to. It gives you a clear checklist on what to do and a bunch of arrows to point you there. However, if you go too far, the game places like an invisible wall, so you can't go any further. But in the case of Elden Ring, you are free to go wherever you want and play the game how you want. With the big difference, you will feel when you shouldn't be in an area because you're too weak. And that felt very liberating, but we are going to talk about that way more in detail in just a second. Now, when I went back to Margit, I felt ready. I had better equipment, I was a higher level, and most importantly, I had confidence. I don't know where it came from, but I had confidence. So I walked in there, dodged the stick, panicked a little bit, but eventually, after a few tries, I beat him. I sat back in my chair and exhaled. It felt really good. Like, as good as I haven't felt in years of playing a video game. But I didn't know that this was just the beginning of a huge journey. And most importantly, I didn't know that Margit was just the appetizer. So I stepped into Stormveil Castle when the doors were open, and I was immediately lost. See, coming from Assassin's Creed, I was used to castles being flat squares, with a few guardians patrolling in a circle. However, Stormveil Castle is definitely not a square. It's a giant maze, designed by a madman. There are holes in the walls, ledgers you have to jump to, secret basements with skinless monsters, and overall, it was vertical, it was confusing, and it was brilliant. I literally spent hours just trying to figure out where I should go. And when I finally did, I met the Lord of the Castle, Godric the Grafted. Now, Godric is a fantastic character. He's a weird little old man who decided the best way to gain power was to chop off limbs of other people and glue them to his own body. He looks like a ball of lint you'd find under a dryer, if that lint had too many arms. The fight started and I died. Obviously. Second attempt, I died again. I probably died to any attack he could throw at me. The whirlwind, like 10 of his arms, and the moment where he attaches a dragon head to himself. However, this time, something felt different. I wasn't angry and ran into the boss over and over again. This time, I was learning. When he screams, I knew I had to run away. When he uses his fire, I roll through it. On about attempt 15, my heart was pounding. I had no healing flasks left. Godric has only one hit left, and so did I. I dodged his attack, hit him, and then the screen freezes. The death animation plays and says, "Legend failed." I threw my controller on the couch, stood up, and I felt a rush of adrenaline that I hadn't felt in a video game since like I was probably 12 years old. And at that moment, I realized something. If this game was like Horizon Zero Dawn or Assassin's Creed, I wouldn't have felt anything. In those games, beating a boss is like a standard. You press the buttons, the health bar goes down, and you get a cutscene. It's inevitable. The game simply wants you to win. But at Elden Ring, the game doesn't care if you win. In fact, I believe the game just wants you to lose. So when you finally do win, it's not because the developer gave you a participation trophy, it's because you've earned it. And the feeling of felling a legend, you simply don't get in any other game. And ever since then, Elden Ring ruined every other game for me. I simply can't go back to the cookie-cutter dopamine of clearing a map icon because it simply doesn't make me feel anything now. I mean, this is not the only reason, but we're going to talk about that in just a second. So after I killed Godric, I was hooked massively. I pushed forward to Liurnier, saw the Academia, and went to Kellett, which is simply Australia. Now along that way, I have talked to all kinds of NPCs, which you can easily miss and definitely wouldn't think that they are important in any way. And this is what really cemented the transformation in me. It wasn't just the combat, it's the fact that the game makes you earn anything. Even simple things like progressing an NPC timeline. And the best example for that is Ranny the Witch. In a modern AAA game, if there is a major side quest that unlocks a unique ending, the game will make sure that you know about it 100%. You will get a huge pop-up saying new quest available. You will get a marker on your map, and an NPC will call you like every 5 minutes, saying something like, "Hey, remember Ranny? I will talk to her." In Elden Ring, you have to find a specific tower hidden behind a dungeon. You have to talk to a blue doll, but not just talk to it, you have to rest at a specific bonfire and select the option talk to doll 3 times. Why 3 times? Because the first 2 times, the doll gives you the silent treatment. I'm not joking. If you talk to the doll twice and then leave, you miss the quest. You miss the entire underground city, you miss a pretty cool sword, and you miss the Age of Stars ending. And if this sounds like bad game design to you, it's because on paper it really is. But in reality, it makes the world feel real. It makes it feel like it was made for discovering secret and engaging with all of this naturally, and not just getting everything spoon-fed. And this is one of the most fundamental differences. In Ubisoft logic, content is there to be consumed. You paid for it, so they shove it down your throat. But in From Software logic, unlocking content is the reward for exploring. And if you missed it, well, you might have to start a new playthrough. Now, after weeks of struggles, I finished the game. I beat the final boss and I saw the credits roll. Usually, when I finish a 100-hour-long open-world game, I'm exhausted. I'm done. I uninstall it and I don't touch it for years. However, after Elden Ring, I looked at the main menu and pressed New Game. I didn't want to stop, because I wanted to see what I missed. See, my first character on my first playthrough was a strength build, which is basically a guy with a big stick who hits things until they stop moving. I would bet that most people play the game this way. But for my second run, I played a mage. I want to see what magic looked like. I found spells I didn't even know that existed. And for my third run, I made a bleed build. I turned to a samurai who melts health bars down in seconds. I played the game 3 times, back to back. And every single time, I had 3 different experiences and 3 different journeys. However, the entire time while playing the game, I had one specific thought in mind. What if there will never be another game like this? And this is a thought that still creeps me today. Now, after finishing the game for the 3rd time, I took a break and I looked around the gaming landscape and other games. And looking at the release calendar, there was one game that caught my attention. For me, it was the White Whale, the game I had been waiting for since 2010. Assassin's Creed in Japan. And against what I would usually do, I picked up the game immediately, because on paper, it should be the best game ever made for me. I told myself, okay, you had your fun with the hard game, now it's time to relax. It's time for some comfort food. It's time to be a cool ninja. So after I booted up the game and watched the intro, I was given control. And immediately felt sick. It wasn't the motion blur, it wasn't the frame rate, or it was the noise. See, in Elden Ring, the screen is empty. It's just you and the world. However, in the new Assassin's Creed game, the screen looked like the cockpit of a jet fighter. Minimap in the corner, quest log in the other corner, a compass at the top, a weapon wheel at the bottom, pop-ups telling me about the anime store, pop-ups telling me how to parkour. But I tried to ignore it. I tried to immerse myself in the situation and in the game. So I walked into a village, and when I approached the guard, I was about to formulate a plan in my head on how to approach it. But before I could even think about it for a second, a giant red diamond appeared over the guard's head with a text box saying, "Press B to assassinate." I didn't have to think. I didn't have to plan. The game had already solved the puzzle for me. It felt like I was trying to solve a crossword puzzle where someone has already filled in all the answers with a red pen. Now 2 hours in, I'm tracking a target. Now in Elden Ring, if I need to find someone, I have to look at the environment, I have to listen to the NPCs. However, in Shadows, I press a button and a magical glowing line appears on the floor, leading me directly to the guy's house. Really, I could play this game with a lobotomy. I could play this game while filing my taxes. However, the most unsettling part was the combat. When fighting enemies, they're just numbers flying out of their heads when hitting them. They don't flinch, they just stand there, soaking up damage like a sponge until the health bar hits 0 and they fall over in a ragdoll animation. There was no weight, no impact. It felt like I was hitting cardboard cutout with a pool noodle. I missed the chunk sound of Elden Ring. I missed the panic, and I somehow missed the respect. However, the breaking point came exactly 4 hours in. I was trying to solve a puzzle, if you can call it that, in an ancient temple. I was looking around, trying to find a way to open the door. And at that moment, I was actually engaged for a second. However, after exactly 15 seconds of me not moving, the protagonist started talking to himself. It looks like that lantern is connected to a rope. Maybe if I shoot the rope, the lantern will fall. And at this point, I was deeply disappointed. I mean, the game didn't trust me to look at a rope for 15 seconds without having an anxiety attack. It treated me like a toddler who wandered into a movie theater. I looked at the screen, still baffled, and I realized I wasn't playing a game, I was following instructions. So I closed the game and didn't open it since then. Now don't get me wrong, it wasn't that it was a particularly bad game, at least compared to what most other AAA games do nowadays. And I mean, in 2015, it would have probably been a masterpiece for me. But in 2025, it was unplayable. Elden Ring hadn't just raised the bar, it dismantled the bar and beat other games to death with it. And now, here we are. I'm sitting here, unable to play Assassin's Creed, unable to enjoy Horizon Zero Dawn, and looking at my PlayStation library with the enthusiasm of a man waiting for a ball inspection. And the big question is, why? Why did Elden Ring ruin everything else? Is it just because it's hard? Definitely not. I played hard games before, like Super Meat Boy, and they definitely did not cause the same feeling. The reason is something way deeper. Now, let me explain. After analyzing my own brain rot, I've realized that most modern AAA games is suffering from 3 terminal illnesses. And Elden Ring is the only doctor in the room who isn't trying to cure me with a placebo. And the first symptom is the hand-holding epidemic. As I said before, the game thinks for you, and you basically don't have to do anything. I don't know why, but somewhere along the line, developers decided that the average gamer has the cognitive function of a goldfish with a concussion. They are terrified that you might get stuck for 5 seconds, get bored, and turn the game off. So they don't just help you, they play the game for you. Take Horizon Forbidden West, beautiful game, but you can't walk 5 feet without Aloy talking to herself, I should check that stash, I should use my focus. It's like playing a game with a backseat driver who's also the main character. It destroys the most important feeling in the game, the aha moment. In Elden Ring, the game gives you nothing. It gives you a map fragment that looks like it has coffee stains on it and says, good luck. So when you do find the secret medallion or the invisible bridge, you feel like a genius. You feel like Christopher Columbus, if Christopher Columbus was a naked guy with a jar on his head. Modern AAA games rob you of that feeling. They treat you like a magic to be retained, not a player to be challenged. And this brings me to the second point. Who are these games even for? See, when you have a budget of 200 million, you need to sell to everyone. Your little brother, your grandma, the family dog. And when you try to design a game for everyone, you end up making a game for no one. You have to sand off the edges, you have to remove the friction, you have to make the combat simple enough to be played with one hand while scrolling TikTok. And I call this the grey goo theory. See, longtime gamers, they want to eat steak. But the industry says, sorry, steak is too hard to chew. So we are going to blend everything into a grey, lukewarm paste. Assassin's Creed is paste. It's nutritious, technically, it fills the void, but it has no texture, it has no flavor. From Software, on the other side, didn't make the steak, which is Elden Ring in this example, into paste. They just made the steak bigger. And there's the question, isn't Elden Ring then too hard for normies? And this is the genius. Actually not. Elden Ring appeals to the masses without dumbing itself down by using the open world as the difficulty slider. In a normal game, if you suck, you select story or easy mode in the menu. The game just pats you on the head, lowers the damage, and lets you win. It's patronizing. However, in Elden Ring, there is no menu, there is no difficulty slider. If you suck, the game says, go explore, get stronger, and maybe summon a ghost jellyfish to distract the boss. The spirit ashes, they are the easy mode, but because they are an in-game mechanic, using them doesn't feel like cheating, it feels like strategy. And From Software tricked millions of casual players into playing a hardcore game by giving them the tools to break it, rather than a menu to skip it. And finally, let's talk about the last aspect that shows that FromSoft simply understood the industry, the DLC. See, if you give Ubisoft $10 in Assassin's Creed Shadows, you get the Time Saver Pack that plays the game for you. Or, if you're lucky, you get a rusty stick with slightly better stats. They slice the fun parts out of the game and then sell them back to you. It's like buying a burger, only to be told that you have to pay extra for the cheese and the bottom bun. Now, From Software on the other side, when they released the Shadow of the Earth 3 DLC, they asked for $40, which might sound like a lot, but for that, they gave us a bigger map than most full games, handcrafted bosses, new weapons, new lore. They didn't just give us content, they gave us a sequel and pretended it was a DLC. So why did it ruin games for me? Because I have seen behind the curtain. I've realized that most AAA games are just Skinner boxes, designed to keep engagement metrics up. They are products, they are spreadsheets wrapped in 4K textures. However, Elden Ring is some kind of expression of art. And not art in the pretentious black and white French film way, it is art in the sense of the game has a vision and it refuses to compromise that vision for your comfort. The game demands something from you. It demands your attention, it demands your patience, and in return, it gives you an experience that actually matters.